Well. Welcome back everybody to PoolieMagTV, the raw, unedited, unscripted NUFC fan channel where everybody's got an opinion and nobody's opinion's wrong. And it looks like the second deal of the summer is on its way, and it will be a massive statement signing if we can bring in Hugo Ekitike from Frankfurt. Now, this deal isn't done, but it's ramping up. Fabrizio Romano, Sky Sports News, ESPN, Keith Downey, all the likely lads are all reporting that Newcastle now are ramping up our bid to buy Hugo Ekitike. Wow. Well, if we can get this guy, if we can get this monster of a 23-year-old player through the door for what they are saying could be for 70 million, 75, up to 80 million euros. I know his release clause is 86 million. But I think Frankfurt are willing to listen to between 70 and 75. I've heard reports that we've had a £70 million bid. That's what we're putting in. So let's see if this one can get over the line, but it's exciting, isn't it? It's breaking news. Every news outlet is now on with this story. So I couldn't let the PoolieMagTV faithful down. I've doing a late night video which you will see tomorrow at dinner time. But I just thought, whilst it's fresh in the ether, that I would actually get a video out tonight and make one tonight before I go to bed. Hugo Ekitike. Well, who is this guy? So he's a 23-year-old Frenchman, and if you've been following Newcastle for any longer than 2 or 3 years, you'll know that we were linked with him in 2022. Now, I think he was 19 at the time when we were linked with him, you know, and I watched his highlights back then because we were close. I think it was a £35 million bid had been accepted for the club he was playing in the league, but he didn't want to come to Newcastle. His agents didn't want him to come to Newcastle, and he was sort of making, him or his agents were making derogatory comments, you know, towards Newcastle. He knew PSG were involved. Newcastle were 19th at the time. He was a 19-year-old lad living in France, the biggest club in France coming in at you. You know, and I think it was more agent-driven, his negative comments towards Newcastle. But in them 3 years, Newcastle went from 19th in the Premier League to 2 seasons in the Champions League and winning the Carabao Cup. And we've got some elite players like Tonali, like Bruno, and then like Isaac. And Hugo Ekitike now sees Newcastle probably as a more viable destination than he did 3 seasons ago. And this guy has come on leaps and bounds, hasn't he? He went to Paris Saint-Germain for the 35 million. Didn't really light it up there, but he was behind Mbappe. I think Messi and Neymar were still there when he went. You know, he was raw, he was gangly, he was skinny. And I think he scored 4 goals for them. And then ended up going to Frankfurt for 15 million. Probably half the money than what PSG paid for him. And people were thinking, is he just going to be a floater? Is he just going to be one of them players that look good and end up having 15 clubs by the time he's 28, like a Nicolas Anelka? But no, he's knuckled down at Frankfurt. I think he got 4 league goals in his first season, then he got 15 last season. I think he got well over 20 overall in all competitions last season, with quite a lot of assists. I've just watched his highlight package there for Frankfurt. Frankfurt are a team that I watch a lot of, and this guy's got some skill and he's bulked up and all. You know, he really has bulked up. You know, he looks like a man now. He looked like a boy. He looked like a very tall, gangly boy. He reminded me a little bit like Peter Crouch. Just not as tall, but, you know, gangly and, you know, I don't think he'd have been ready for the Premier League. I think he'd have been loaned out and everything. I don't think he would have hit the ground running. I think we're now getting a complete player. If we can pull this one off, I honestly believe we are getting a complete player in Hugo Ekitike. He just looks quality. He's got skill in abundance. He's got pace. You know, he's got great knowledge of where the goal is. He can play in behind the striker. He can play as a lone striker. He can play on the left. This guy has numerous positions, and Newcastle aren't just buying him to replace Alexander Isak. Newcastle are buying him to play alongside Alexander Isak. Now that's a scary, scary thought for any team to look at that team and we've got Barnes now, Murphy, Isaac, Gordon, Alanga, and if you get Ekitike and all, and Scalvini, and maybe it's Conor Gallagher in midfield, wow, and Trafford in goal. If we can pull all them signings off, well, this has got to be one of the best summers we've ever had. And this has got to put us into real contention then I don't just mean for like Champions League, I mean to really push the big boys next season. You've just seen Chelsea win the Club World Cup. They're going to push on. Arsenal have got a triple signing announcement imminent. We need these big signings to make other teams look around and go, whoa, Newcastle mean business this season. And if we do mean business, then we'll go out and get this guy. We will. I thought missing out on João Pedro was really bad, but Hugo Ekitike, I think, is better than João Pedro, I really do. Or if not better, he's on the same level as him. So I think if we can get this guy through the door, it'd be absolutely fantastic. And what a summer that would be, because, you know, it was getting stale. It was getting to the point where we were thinking, oh, not this again, not this shite again. Are we going to go through a summer where we don't get anybody? Looks like our best signings are going to be the ones we keep and not bring anybody new through the door. But it doesn't look that way now, and this is ramping up now. You know, Sky Sports are all over it, the ESPN are all over it, Fabrizio Romano's all over it. The agent's apparently in Newcastle now, finalising the deal. You know, we've held talks in Germany, we're holding talks with the representatives in Austria where we're doing our pre-season tour. You know, and I wholeheartedly believe that we'll get Hugo Ekitike. We do a monster signing. Now, don't get me wrong, Anthony Elanga's a great signing, but he's not a monster signing, is he? He's not a signing where everybody's going to look at it and think, whoa, God, you know, a Man City and that look at Hugo Ekitike and think, oh, Newcastle, they might be dangerous this season. You know, imagine that front four, whatever. We're going to have to start playing a different style. I was talking to my dad about it the other day, and he thinks we're going to start playing a little bit more of a fluid style instead of rigid 4-3-3, and I completely agree with him. We're going to have to, because Elanga plays different to Murphy. You know, Ekitike will play different to the other people that we've got up front. But this guy is just absolute quality. You know, he's beefed up, he's bulked up, he looks like a proper man now, he looks like a proper striker. You know, and he'll just be a great addition. Can't get too excited. It's not yellow on Sky Sports. He hasn't got his interview on the Newcastle official channel. He's not stood there with the scarf above his head at St James's Park saying, this is my boyhood club and I've always wanted to play for you. You know, like they all do. But, you know, there's no smoke without fire, as the old saying goes. And this could be one of them signings that really changes the trajectory of Newcastle United. You know, I really do believe Hugo Ekitike, if we can get him, is that good of a player, you know, to really take us to the next level. You know, imagine Isaac now looking at this and thinking, wow, look what I've got to play with. Now look what could happen. You know, and I honestly believe we've got a great, fantastic chance of really doing something special next season if we can get Hugo Ekitike and Scalvini and maybe Conor Gallagher, but especially Ekitike. I really do. Anyway, what's your thoughts? Would you want Ekitike after the slanderous comments that he made, you know, a few seasons ago on his agent, or is that all by and water under the bridge? It is for me. I don't care what he said as a 19-year-old. You know, I really couldn't care less. He's 23 now, he's a man, he's grown into a man, he's grown into a fantastic footballer. But other Newcastle fans out there might have a difference of an opinion to me. So anyway, comment down below what you think of this potential signing. Hit like, hit subscribe. You know, the channel's grown and I appreciate every single body, every single person who watches these videos, whether you watch it for 10 seconds or the 10 minutes or whatever. The fact that you've clicked on the channel, you know, is fantastic. You know, a lot of people who are watching it are not subscribed, so if you've watched this far, you know, hit a like and subscribe. Costs nothing, it helps the channel grow, and you know, you might enjoy more of the content. You know, we're having a few more commenters now on the videos with differences of opinion, and I think that's great. You know, and I try to get back to all the comments. As the channel grows, I might not be able to get back to every single comment, but at the present I can. You know, and I'm enjoying the little bit of back and forth that I've been having with a few people on there, which is really good. So the channel's grown in the right direction, and I honestly believe Newcastle are going in the right direction with this potential signing if we can get them over the line. Anyway, like I always say, hit like, hit subscribe, share, keep it black and white, and keep it PoolieMagTV. Over and out.